Thank you for joining us back on the Drive Back YouTube channel. We are here today to do our review for the newly released Mortal Kombat. This is a highly anticipated video game adaptation. The first one we've gotten in quite a while, actually. I think the last video game adaptation we got was Tomb Raider.
I think that's correct, yeah.
2017 or 2018. So this
Yeah.
is very highly anticipated. Also, the fact that it is based off of the Mortal Kombat franchise, which has had two notable film adaptations before, one of them good and one of them awful. So let's go ahead and we're going to talk spoiler-free here about Mortal Kombat. We'll be doing a spoiler-filled review coming up later this week. But let's go ahead and talk Mortal Kombat off the bat. What are your initial impressions before we dive in?
Of Mortal Kombat or of the movie?
I was going to say of the movie.
Of the movie? I think if I had to basically sum it up in one sentence, is that the plot is very whatever, but the fighting is some of the coolest video game style fighting I think I've seen represented on real screen by, quote, real people in a long time. Very, very good action.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm going to go so far as to state, first off, this is the best video game adaptation we have ever had. And I say that as a fan of Mortal Kombat, so I do have to put that disclaimer in there. This is a very good adaptation of the source material. But that is to say that while it's a very good video game adaptation, it does have its issues. It does have its flaws, as no movie is perfect. And we'll go ahead and talk about them. But first, let's go ahead, for those of you who don't know the movie, we'll go over the synopsis. Mortal Kombat is directed by Simon McQuaid and stars Louis Tan, Jessica McNamee, and Josh Lawson. MMA fighter Cole Young seeks out Earth's greatest champions in order to stand against the enemies from Outworld in a high-stakes battle for the universe. That's really all the plot you need for this movie.
That's literally as deep as the plot gets.
Yes, and you don't need anything. The single greatest strength about this movie is that it realizes what it's coming from, and it doesn't try to, it does enough hand-holding for people who aren't a big fan of Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
You understand that Earth Realm, is at threat from Outworld, and they have to have a tournament. And if the tournament is won one more time by Outworld, then Outworld gets to invade Earth.
Yeah, and that's actually something that I found probably as a more negative for me, was that the exposition in this film, for people that aren't familiar, was a little bit extensive and exhausting for me. Again, I am coming from that kind of privileged state of knowing about the world and everything beforehand, but there were full, minute-long segments of just explaining how things worked, and I get that that was needed, but to me personally, it just felt, again, having already known it, it just felt a little forced and a little bit too much hand-holding.
That's fair. I mean, they do have to make it for a general audience as much as they do make it for us as the fans of the video game.
100%.
But it is nice to finally get in, I don't know if it's canon, but an in-universe explanation for why these characters have abilities. And that's through your Arcana, which I actually really enjoyed that. We won't talk about specifics of that until the spoiler-filled video. But let's go ahead and dive a little bit deeper. So let's kind of break it into a few categories. Let's talk about cast first. We really got to highlight Josh Lawson as Kano. He is the single best casting and a choice in this movie, besides Joe Taslim as Sub-Zero or Bihan. But Josh Lawson is just so damn good in this movie.
Yeah, he gives his heart and soul to the performance for sure, and you could tell. I mean, it's very, very well done.
Yes, it is Kano. From the games, just straight up, it is Kano, which is fantastic. Again, Joe Taslim as Bihan or Sub-Zero is also good as well. He is intimidating. Even when he doesn't have his mask and getup on in the beginning of the movie, he's intimidating. And we'll talk about it a little bit later, but the fact that he has officially signed on for 4 more Mortal Kombat movies.
Yeah.
So this is a chapter 1, which is...
Well, we don't know.
Sweet.
They could all be prequels, or we have no idea.
Yes. Well, hopefully, yeah. But so as far as casting goes, I feel like everyone... it's a mixed bag. I feel like everyone does a serviceable job to good. There's only, I would say, one person who kind of stands out as kind of flat. And that would be the main character, Cole.
Yeah, I mean, I think all the acting was very I would say serviceable is more where I would fall. The majority of it, it definitely did okay for the movie, but I think they all did phenomenal. Whoever their stunt work team, again, the action is what we all came to see, and they all definitely deliver on that, and they do embody the personality of the characters. You get all those catchphrases and little quips and all the stuff from each of the characters. I will agree the main character Cole was a little bit flat, but I think overall it was kind of just serviceable to me.
Yeah, I think they did as good as they could with a new
Totally.
character. And what I want to preface this as well, because there's a lot of people saying that some of the characters in this feel kind of pointless or they are flat. And I don't attribute that to the actors at all. I think the actors did as best as they could. I do think it was an error in the writing with this movie,
Mm.
where the characters just weren't given enough to do to shine, which is unfortunate because a lot of these, I would say, the casting decisions, the look, and the way that the characters actually acted their parts was just out of the game. Like it was perfectly just out of the game. But again, I think it is the writing of these characters and what they're actually given to do with them.
Well, yeah, and I think it's tough too because in the games, I mean, of course, we're on, I believe, 11 now. Mortal Kombat 11 is the last one that I played. But I mean, so we have a little bit of dialogue that has been built with these characters, but I mean, most of their personality are their catchphrases and the small cutscenes you get before they fight in the game.
Yeah.
So that is challenging for the writers to flush out an entire character story
Mm-hmm.
from some of these. That some of them didn't have them at all. Some of them are brand new, and I think that is really, really a challenge. So yeah, maybe you are right. Maybe it wasn't the actor's fault.
Yeah.
Maybe it was the writing.
And let's go ahead and transition to something else, which is also important with this movie. And you already mentioned is the fights because they're pretty awesome.
Cream of the crop.
Especially the climactic battle between Scorpion and Sub-Zero is just, it's literally video game to screen perfection.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate because Scorpion, and this is not really spoiling it, I wouldn't say, he's not in the movie as much as you would like him to be.
For a good reason. I mean, it definitely is with it fits the narrative, and it kind of makes for, without spoiling anything, it kind of makes for like a more satisfying kind of like arc to the
Appearance?
whole film. Not even just the appearance, just it kind of makes it more satisfying how the movie kind of. I guess the third act feels a little bit more powerful,
Yes.
because of how they wrote his character.
Well, that's
Um,
everyone I've seen talk about this movie has said that it starts out perfect. The sequence with Bihan and Hanzo in the beginning is like
yeah,
some of like literally the best moment from gaming put on the screen.
yeah,
Ever.
it's amazing.
But then it does slow down because there's a lot of exposition they have to tell, and you could tell that this is a first chapter.
Yeah, there's like 30 minutes of exposition in the beginning that is just a little painful.
And to be fair, there are a lot of characters in this movie. So they do have to kind of establish them, and they can't just, throw it in for the sake of, like, for me as a video game fan, you could just throw in Cabal, I mean, which they kind of do in this movie, and I'm like, okay, sweet, that's Cabal. I love that character. Or you could actually build them up. Like, you have to build up Cole, like, obviously, but...
Well, yeah, that's definitely given. I also just in every Mortal Kombat movie, I always the whole thing where they have to explain what Mortal Kombat is always so interesting to me to listen to. But
Yeah.
in this one, it just felt a little tired. I know that there are people out there that have no idea what they're about to go watch, which this is a strange movie to go watch blindly.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
wondering what your girlfriend thought of this.
uh, Well, that's spoilers. I won't tell
Okay.
you anything about that. But we'll save that for the next review. So if you want to find out what Cassidy thought about the movie, who does not like when I crack my knuckles, we will go ahead and reveal that in the spoiler section. But I mean, yeah, I don't know who's seeing this, and I'm sure there are people. I'm not saying it's like illegal or anything, but I don't know who's seeing this that isn't familiar with Mortal Kombat. But the whole like probably I would say 10 minutes of just explaining what the name it like what it is just felt a little too tiresome for me.
It didn't feel too long. I mean, to be fair, that moment led up to the introduction of Kano, and a pretty awesome fight, which
Yeah, but I think where I'm coming from is like they had this whole thing where Cole is supposed to not believe what he's hearing when he just saw Sub-Zero in like the beginning of the film. Totally like one do well, I don't even want, yeah, but do insane stuff. And then he's like, she's the what's her name?
Sony.
Yeah, she says she's like it's this ritual combat called Mortal Kombat, and he goes, "Are you joking? They even spelled it wrong." And that whole kind of thing was
I
just
mean,
like
like that's just a meta joke though. Like the fact, like I had friends over for a game night a couple days ago, and I turned on Mortal Kombat 11, and then the button when you hit like A to start says continue with a K, and they're like, "Why is it spelled that way?"
the whole menu is spelled that way.
It's just part of it. It's just the charm of it.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely will forgive it for its narration and its exposition because I know that it is necessary. So I cannot dock it points because there are people that are going to watch this without ever having played the games or watching the other movies.
Yeah.
So it's necessary. For a dedicated fan, though, it does get a little bit tiring.
Yeah. Speaking of docking points, though, there is something I wanted to highlight that I thought was a pretty big flaw in this movie, and there is a caveat with it, though, that I'd like to try and maybe see if it's the case. The editing in this movie, specifically during the fights, is pretty bad.
It's definitely choppy.
It's like it's not as bad as like Taken 3, I think it was, when it was like 20 shots for Liam Neeson to get over a fence.
To throw one punch, and it's like 18 takes.
Yeah, it's awful. But it's definitely jarring. And the caveat is that I watched this in Imax. And there's a big screen. This movie, I don't think, was made using IMAX cameras. I think it was made with just regular cameras. Yeah. And so maybe it was like me being too close to the screen that I couldn't keep up. So I'm going to be watching this at home again, and I think I'm going to be seeing it with a couple friends of mine again, because they want to go see it, and I know who all the characters are, and I can explain it to them. But maybe I'll see if it's a little bit easier to kind of follow. But how is it for you?
I went into one of my favorite theaters here. It's at the mall. It's called Valley Fair, but it's a Showplace Icon theater. So they have the whole XD digital projection and all that good stuff, 4K. But they also have Dolby Atmos. So watching it with Dolby Atmos, the ice sound effects and the punching and the kicking and pretty much everything about the movie just sounded so crisp and so incredible that it to me it added a whole nother layer because I felt like I was in the fight. It was absolutely surreal to watch some of these things. It was very cool.
Okay, gotcha. But how was the editing for you then?
I mean, I definitely know. I know what you're saying, that it was a little like the John Wick team definitely did not work on this movie. But I think it made sense in terms of like chronological order of the fight. Like I don't think there were over the top cuts. Just a little janky is probably my definition. Just a little off. Nothing too crazy though for me.
Yeah. Maybe for me it was just seeing it on a larger screen. So
I've seen movies in IMAX like that are supposed to be big pictures, but it's like when you're watching Transformers on IMAX and you can't the sword takes up the whole screen and you can't even see what's going on.
Let's kind of go over some other stuff. Two things I wanted to go over. First, the visual effects were actually surprisingly good.
They were great.
There's one moment that really sticks out to me, and I've talked to a couple people, and they thought it looked fine. In the intro sequence, when Hanzo is fighting off the Lin Kuei assassins, there's one that he stabs through the top of the head, and the blood comes out like his eye holes and stuff. It looks it looks really bad. I don't know.
I think that was so quick. I may have not noticed it because that's very quick to me. So I can't comment. It may have looked terrible, and I just missed it.
Maybe. But the visual effects on Goro looked really good.
Surprisingly good. I was very surprised. I was expecting it. Like when they were building up, they didn't show him for quite a while, and then when he actually shows up, I was expecting like, oh, this is gonna not look that great, and they did great.
That definitely paid off too, and also the fight with the reptile-style lizard creature. Which there was a really cool way that they do that, which we'll talk about in the spoiler review, because I don't want to spoil anything here. But that's really cool. Also, one thing I wanted to highlight is the music. And while the music doesn't really stand out when it's actually happening during the course of the movie, when it uses the original theme for Mortal Kombat in the score, you feel it, and it is awesome.
Oh yeah, I was lucky enough to be in a theater that it was almost as if it was a midnight showing, that were cheering and clapping when certain things made their reveal or certain phrases were said. So it was a very fun time in my theater. I mean, people were going like, "Yeah!" when things happen. And I love watching that. I love the energy. So I had, and when the yeah, like exactly what you're talking about, when that music hits and the bass just goes crazy. And it's kind of quiet except for that, like, dun, dun, and everyone was just like, ah, everyone went crazy.
Specifically, the new remix of Techno Syndrome at the end is just
awesome. Skrillex hops on the beat, which is crazy.
It's not Skrillex, but
and no, I know, but in the second half, it basically sounds like
it just turns the dubstep.
It basically does.
But everything else I want to talk about is really spoilers, so I feel like we should kind of wrap this up. Look out for the spoiler-filled review coming soon. Is there anything else you want to say before we move on to the spoiler?
Well, I don't want to say any spoilers, but I do want to say that this movie, the reason I think it does so well is because it does not hold back in the violence of what Mortal Kombat is. I think that a lot of movies and a lot of production companies may have taken this and played it a lot safer. And again, this isn't like 100 movie. Like, this isn't the best thing that has ever existed. But as far as a video game movie, it is. It made me want to come home and play the game again. It was like so fun to watch and see some of these really cool moments and some of these crazy fatalities and stuff on screen. And of course, all the little catchphrases and hearing your favorite characters and all that. It's just really, really fun, but it is really, really violent. So you will, if you're looking for that, you're going to get all those payoffs you're looking for.
Which is interesting, because I wanted to talk about the violence and the fatalities for a second.
Sure.
Because they were so hyped up in the marketing. The team was like, oh, there were fatalities we had to cut because the movie would have been banned in certain countries. So I was like, man, this is gonna be awesome. There's one fatality specifically that sticks out to me as like the most whoa. I am incredibly disappointed in the violence in this movie. I didn't think it was as good as what everyone was hyping it up to be.
I can see what you're saying. I definitely don't think it was anywhere near like a band level film. That's the first time hearing of it. I definitely don't agree with that. But I will say that I mean, let's say this. I would be interested in an unrated cut of the film. I would be very interested to watch kind of that like extended edition with more fatalities or more violence, or maybe literally just like in the game, what they should just release like a gore mode of the movie where it's even more violent.
That would be funny, actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, there were a lot of fatalities, but like the ones that are like, the ones that always stick out to me, the ones that are super bloody and gory.
Those are the brutalities.
Well, no, fatalities are also bloody and gory. Brutalities are just a special way to end the match.
Which is, you get it, like, I mean, yeah, and without spoiling anything, but I think they definitely could have done more, especially if you're talking about, like, it could have been banned. I don't think this was anywhere near.
I think that was just
that.
Marketing. I think they were just.
Yeah, I don't think that's near that. I think it's just, it was violent for sure. Like, don't take a child.
No, do not.
But, yeah, I mean, unless the child wants to see what their spine looks like.
When it's outside of the body.
Yeah.
But let's go ahead and let's wrap this up. Adrian, what did you think of Mortal Kombat? What kind of score are you giving it?
I am giving this movie an 82. Solely based off of that I enjoyed it. I had a good time. It made me laugh. There were some good jokes. It was just a fun ride, and I'm all about fun in movies. And I gave it an 82, which is probably a little higher than kind of what we were talking about. But again, this is one of the best video game adaptations we've seen in a long time, if not ever. I'm trying to think, but I can't really think of anything off the top of my head. But definitely a top tier video game movie, and just a lot of fun to go see.
Yeah, and that's it. Again, it is a great video game adaptation because it feels like the game. It's not super deep. It doesn't have to have reasons for everything. You just want to see someone yank another person's heart out, and it's great.
Yeah.
But that being said, I gave it a 79. I still think that it is the best video game adaptation we've ever received. But again, it does have some flaws that prevent it from being a truly fantastic film. But again, as a video game fan, as a Mortal Kombat fan, even if you're just into prop culture and how Mortal Kombat has influenced the entertainment industry, go see it. Please support this movie so that we get the sequels that we want. We want to see the actual Mortal Kombat tournament, which would be fantastic. And give us some Shao Kahn. I want some Shao
Yeah.
Kahn. But that's going to bring us into this review. Look out for the spoiler-filled discussion coming a little bit later this week. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to follow us. Where can they find us on social media, Adrian?
The Drive Back podcast, pretty much everywhere. We love to have conversations, and we take movie recommendations because there are so many movies in the world that we just get overwhelmed sometimes with our own personal lists that we need to watch. So any suggestions, we'll probably add those to the list, and we'll go ahead and watch them and review them for you. But yeah, we just love talking to the fans. So make sure to message us and make sure to hit that little bell for notifications so that you get that spoiler review for after you've watched the movie yourself.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the spoiler-filled discussion, and thanks for joining us on The Drive Back.